All right, all right, all right. We are back. We are back. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to another episode of Eight Queens Roundtable Show and Podcast. I am your host, Jacqueline Kabah Harrison, and typically we stream live every second and fourth Sunday of the month at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, like I had mentioned to you all before, I have been adding a lot of additional shows, in which I am super excited about helping other women add more visibility to their businesses, as well as bringing light to different anthologies that are soon to be launched. With all that being said, this is in reference to where I am interviewing this awesome business owner, author, as she is a project, or as she is a part of. I'm sorry, you all. I'm a little tired today, a little under the weather, so please just bear with me. So this is as a part of anthology titled Undefeated. Visionary author is Kearn Cherry, and is set to launch the end of this month, or towards the end of this month. So I am super excited to come to you today and to talk to you a little bit about this anthology, as well as this awesome co-author. So before we get started, let me just give a quick introduction of myself. Again, my name is Jacqueline Kabah Harrison. I am your host for Eight Queens Roundtable Show and Podcast, and Eight Queens Roundtable Leadership Symposium, which happens in January, May, and September. I am also the executive producer of the Eight Queens Roundtable channel on the Women Win Network, the number one predominantly women television network that I'm super excited about. We stream on Roku as well as Amazon Fire TV. And I am also a visionary author myself. The name of my book is titled Born to Lead, Awakening the Leader Within. And we're also set to launch the end of this month. So I'm super excited about all of that. And I'm glad to be here today with this esteemed guest. I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself, if you will, please.
Thank you, Jackie, for the opportunity to be on your show. Again, I'm Shaunda Thompson. I'm an Amazon best-selling author. So I just released another anthology along with a few other authors. Joy Comes in the Morning. So that's the newest one in addition to Undefeated. I'm also the co-author of The New Female Leader. And I'm also the co-author of a public speaking book. So this is actually my third anthology. I'm also a certified image consultant and an executive life coach. So I help women with their appearance, their behavior, and their communication style. And so what that really is I just teach women how to leverage their personal brand, their soft skills, and their presence, so women can elevate their confidence, their success, and their performance. I really use as a coach, I have a very holistic approach. And so I use a combination of personality and image development to help women unleash their inner powerhouse in order for them to kind of tap into their unshakable confidence so that they can turn their visions into reality.
Wow, that's a mouthful. I have a question. Soft skills. Soft
Yes.
skills are best defined as?
They're your communication skills. So these are your kind of these intangible, kind of innate qualities that people have. And that's really the secret to executive presence. So have you ever met someone, they're very charismatic and they just have like this thing, you can't quite put your finger on it. It's their communication. It's how they show up to the world.
Okay. And now some people, I think, just automatically kind of, or would you agree, just kind of automatically just have it? And then there's some people, I guess, that they don't automatically have it, but they can learn it.
Yes, I do agree. So yes, some people are very natural. They have it. They're very in tune and kind of in touch with who they are. And people that kind of need to work on it, that's really often the missing piece, is just really knowing who they are And that's kind of where I come in as a coach. So we can kind of work on that so we can get that self-knowledge. And then once someone has that, then we can kind of move on a little more with that image development. But what you have to know, as Ayana would say, 𝐕𝐨𝐢𝐧, you have to know who you be first, so you know how you're going to show up in the world.
No, that's right. You got to know who you be first.
Know who you be.
Otherwise, you'll end up trying to imitate others, right?
Correct. And you want to come off as authentic, and your authenticity kind of plays into your credibility, because we can always spot a mile away when someone's being inauthentic. And a lot of times that can stem from, again, not knowing, who you are. It can stem from fear, it can, come from a few other places, but it's very important to have that self-knowledge first.
So do you also help your clients figure that out, like figure out who they are? Like, because I'm pretty sure you have people or sometimes women will come to you. And now, do you work primarily with women?
Yes, I do work primarily with women. Yes.
So don't some women come to you sometimes and they don't really know who they are, especially like, if they're not a mother, if they're not a wife, right?
Yeah, so we can work. So one of the things I work with is really your identity, which you kind of built on. So that's a large part. When I start working with a client, we do that self-assessment, and I spend a lot of time, and it's often on that self-knowledge piece that a lot of people kind of want to skip, and they want to get to like the nuggets, or like they want to skip over that. But that's really your roadmap. When you have to know, what are your skills? What do you value? What are your strengths? What are areas of opportunity? A lot of people want to skip over that. But again, that kind of provides a lot of information on your next step. So I particularly love working with mothers that are returning to the workforce. So they've been at home. Their children are a certain age in school, where they're in school all day, and they want to return to the workforce. And often I find that these women don't really have a realization of how much that they've changed and that they've grown, even though they're working in the home and they're not, in a 9-to-5, they're wanting to stay kind of where they were maybe 5 or 6 or more, years ago. But they're often very surprised at, a lot of their transferable skills and how their interests have changed. And I find that they're very focused on wanting to do what they last did. I mean, if they want to do that, that's fine. But I think a lot of women kind of underestimate, their skills and how fabulous they are. So I really, really love working with women that are like transitioning back into the workforce.
Yeah, I love that too. That sounds like very rewarding work.
It is.
It's interesting to hear you say, and I'm not surprised that a lot of times people want to gloss over that initial work.
Yeah.
When in actuality, getting more rooted in that and understanding that will help you show up more authentically and help you, kind of, I guess, define your area of expertise or the direction of your business.
Correct. And then helping them articulate how they can add value to an employer. So oftentimes when we're, again, not really sure of who we are and what we bring, we'll just accept anything. So I also help with salary negotiation. So learning like how to do that and what the criteria are. And when you're confident and when you know what you bring to an employer, you can go in there. And I always tell my clients, you're going to get 2 answers. You're either going to get the yes or you're going to get the no, but don't be afraid to negotiate. Like, you shouldn't settle. If you've left the workforce 6 years ago and you're coming back in, you shouldn't be making the same salary that you've made 6 years ago. So a lot of time, even as women, I think that's one thing that we really don't do. We don't really advocate for ourselves, and we really don't, like to negotiate. So I think it's very empowering to show a woman like, no, you are valuable. And these are the things that you bring to the table.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm almost embarrassed to say, well, I don't want to say that. it is what it is. And there's probably a lot of other people out there that experience the same thing. I just started negotiating my salary because it was a time where I would go in and, they told me what the salary was. And my mindset was either I accept that or I go elsewhere.
Right. You have a lot of power. I don't think a lot of women realize how much power they have in the workforce. They have a lot of power in their career. And so helping someone realize, but knowing who you are, again, going back to that, that's the foundation for your confidence. And you have to be able to feel comfortable in walking away. So if they're not meeting you, where you're wanting to go, then there's other employers that will see your value. And you know what? See it in yourself. Be an entrepreneur, start your own business, work towards, getting away from that W-2, because again, as women, we bring so much, and we have so much value that it just amazes me some days when working with clients. Like I always say, if I could just hold up a mirror so you can just see how bright you're already, shining. So it's just my wish that more women would just know that they're just valuable and how powerful they are.
Yes. And I'm a confidence and success coach. So that's how my business originally started. So just hearing you say that is just, it just really it really speaks to me. And I so agree. It's a matter of looking at that individual and saying, I want you to see what I see.
Yes. Yes. And it's a mindset thing too. So we've all had things that have kind of happened in our life that kind of set the lens in which we see the world. And so it's just kind of healing from those things too. So I'm a certified coach as well. And then that's part of the inner work that we do is, healing some of those, self-limiting beliefs. Do you have a growth mindset, a fixed mindset? And then, you as a success and confidence coach knows that's a major part in how we live, our life. Like if you have a fixed mindset, you're probably never gonna negotiate, or you're probably never going to live out your life or live out these dreams that, Jehovah gives us. He's the ones that puts these dreams in us in order for us to live those lives. I think a lot of times we get so caught up in the logistics of things, and all Jehovah asks is for our yes, and he's going to work everything out. But if you have that fixed mindset, if you listen to these negative, maybe sometimes self-fulfilling prophecies, you'll always be stuck.
And just, this really, I knew this was going to happen. When you first started talking, I was like, okay, Jackie, just kind of, just calm down over here. But it's like when you talked about, we're sitting here and we're talking about understanding the value, like when you go into a potential employer. And oftentimes when women, whether you're working full-time, you work your business part-time, or whether you're in business full-time, oftentimes it's that whole piece of not charging what you're worth.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. And I know for myself, and I know I'm not alone, I took that same, and then being a social worker too.
Oh, okay.
I took that same mindset into my business.
Yeah.
In terms of my pricing.
Yeah.
So that was a whole mindset piece that I had to go through.
Yeah, because you have to know, the years that you've spent in honing your craft, the cost that you've spent for certifications. You've known the time and the effort that you've taken, because we know with your career, you put a lot of effort into, like I said, the certifications, classes. There's a lot of effort and intentionality that goes into when you have a career, so you can be great at doing that one thing that you decided. So I think when you don't have the confidence and you're a little shaky on the value or what you can bring, that's where that comes from. I don't want to, oh, this is too much. Maybe, nobody's going to pay this. No, there are people out there that will pay what you're asking for, because when you're confident in what you bring to people or what problem you solve or the value that you can give to someone, they'll pay it.
That's right. And everybody may not necessarily be able to pay it, right?
Right.
But they may not be able to pay it right now, or they may not see the value in it, and that's okay.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I said earlier, we have to be like, you go into that job interview and they're not willing to go, meet you halfway or
correct.
Sound like they're talking like they got some sense.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared to say, oh, okay.
Correct.
Not at this time.
But there are people out there that will. Like, I'll just use the analogy. Okay, the grocery store. Okay, you can walk down the bread aisle. There's lots, I don't even know how many different brands of bread, right? So you may not like one brand, but you may like it. So there's something out there for everyone. Everybody will buy whatever brand they like in the grocery store. So I just feel like when we're just so unaware of what we can have and what we leave so much on the table. And I think it's just worth at some point in everyone's life, there should just get to a point where you're just like, something has to change, or I want to do better. How do I do this? And that's why, there's some good coaches out there that can kind of help you connect those dots.
Yep. So let's walk it over or transition it over to the Undefeated project.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you decide to become a part of this project?
So one, I just think Kearn is amazing as a person. So let me just start there. And two, I wanted to do this project because I wanted to tell my story in Undefeated. So as a coach, I help women, find their confidence and kind of really walk in their purpose. But I just wanted to tell my story and how I kind of rebuilt my life. So here I am, a helper, I help other people, and I had to start my life over from scratch. So I talked about how losing my son. So my son, Brock, was born at 26 weeks, and he lived for 61 days. And during that time, so I had lost my son. I was in an abusive, toxic marriage. And so I just had to rebuild my life. So I moved from Maryland to Virginia. I transitioned careers, and I just wanted to, again, tell my story and share the roadmap with other women that are finding themselves in transition, or, they may be making a pivot, whether it's professional or personal in their life. I just wanted to encourage women to say that, yeah, it may be difficult, but you can do it, and you're going to come out on the other side. So that's, I just wanted to, and for me, writing the chapter was kind of healing, and it was something that I've wanted to do for a while, but I had to deal with a little bit of the shame, because as I stated earlier, I'm a helper. So how is a helper in this, toxic, marriage? Like how could you help someone? So I had to, heal that and work through that. I went to counseling, and that's something that I actually wrote about, because we know in the African-American community, that's often, frowned upon, or that's, just pray it away. Like, yes, I believe in prayer. I also believe, Jehovah placed, there's counselors in the world too, to kind of help us. So, I touched a little about that in my chapter, and I just hope that when women read it, that again, it's going to provide just maybe some inspiration and encouragement for them.
Yep, some inspiration and encouragement.
Yes.
And I like how you mentioned too about the whole piece about mental health,
Mm-hmm.
because you're right. Within, I'm a clinician. I don't know
Yes.
if I said that earlier, but I'm a clinician, and I definitely know what you mean in terms of how mental health is so stigmatized in
Yes.
communities. A lot of people, I don't need to see no therapist. I'm not crazy.
Yes.
You know how many times I've heard people say that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of shame,
Yes.
and even admitting that we need help,
Yes.
and being able to go somewhere. And this always comes up, not always, but a lot of times it comes up. It's a double sword, if you will. It's the piece about the stigma of mental illness, and
Yes.
whatever goes on in this house stays in this house kind of thing.
Yes. Oh,
So,
yes.
yeah, so it's just all sorts of things that
Mm-hmm.
basically have us just keep it all inside and
Yes.
try to deal with it ourselves, because we're afraid of being judged.
Yeah, so afraid of being judged. And just to kind of piggyback on what you said, so I
Mhm.
returned to work like 3 weeks after I lost my son, because it's like you said, trying to keep it inside. I'm okay. I'm okay. And it was just that I just broke down one day at work, and I'm like, I am not okay. And just having the courage to say that I'm not okay. And a lot of times as Black women, there's this myth of the strong Black woman, that again, a big myth. But for me to one, admit that I'm not okay, and then to seek counseling. But for me, even after I sought counseling, I was so resistant sitting in counseling. Like, okay, I'm there, I know I need help, but I'm trying to convince more of the counselor that I'm okay.
Okay.
It was
Now,
just, it
listen,
was crazy.
we're gonna go right back to you. But you know how many people come and sit in my office and do the same thing? And you just want to say that in a facetious way. So I'm just curious, why are you here?
That's exactly what my counselor asked me. And again, I just kind of broke down, and it was just the shame of saying, you know what, I'm not okay, because I've lived my life up until that point saying that, like lying to myself. I wasn't honest with myself. And because I wasn't honest with myself for a majority of my life, that led me to right there. But it was just that simple question, then why are you here? And it was just like, oh, like I clutched my pearls, like, what? And that started like, okay, let me put my walls down. Obviously, what I've been doing has not been working all this time. So let me, stop being resistant to the process. And that was another thing. I was very resistant in like, okay, I'm going to be healed in like 2 sessions. Like, no, I was in counseling for some years, like 2.5. Like it's a process, and just being compassionate, learning patience, self-compassion, truly learning what self-care is. I heard all these things. I read about all these things, but to actually practice them and to really deal with yourself, I always say that's one of the hardest things to do, is dealing with yourself. And I'm just so thankful for my counselor that really brought to life like a lot of dysfunctional patterns that I had in my life, and thinking, just unhealthy ways that I was just being. But to me, it was normal, because it was my everyday. The dysfunction was so normal. But to kind of work through that and then heal, some areas in my life, it was the best thing. And I always say that as traumatic as it was to lose my son, Brock, that was the catalyst, or that was the thing that made me stop and say, something needs to change, and I need help, because I can't even think about where I would be now had that, had I not lost him. Like, that was a true blessing for me. And ironically, Saturday coming up, the 17th, would have been his 12th birthday. So I think the timing of this interview, I think the timing of when the book is going to be released, I feel like it's a great tribute to my son. And I've just made a promise to him that, you know what, your life won't be in vain. And I always want him to be proud of me. So I kind of want to take, his life and just live a great legacy. And I hope that other women who have not only lost a child, but have had some loss in their life are just inspired, by my story.
Right. And that's why we do what we do, is because we understand the power of that.
Yes.
It could be someone else that's drowning, and they might catch the replay or might hear about the book or roll across it on Amazon or whatever the case.
Yeah.
And connect with you, and really begin to look at things differently. That's always the hope, is to be able to, inspire others through our stories.
Yes.
I was going to say one other thing, and I was kind of holding it in. And this is, we kind of moved on from this a little bit, but like I said, I was holding on to it because I didn't want to interrupt. But sometimes, and I know this was my case. Sometimes I think we may be fearful of kind of opening up and really being vulnerable, because we feel that, like, if we start crying, if we start opening up, if we start letting it out, like, it won't stop. Kind of like opening a floodgate, and how in the world am I going to do damage control? Like, I know I've experienced that, and I've come across a lot of women that have said, maybe not in those exact words,
right,
that they felt something along those lines, that the whole stigma of kind of, because I know I was always taught to, keep your head up.
Yeah.
And, whatever happens, you just kind of suck it up and you move on. Like, as a Black woman, you don't have time to be in the bed. You don't have time to be crying. You gotta just suck it up and just keep going. And I know I watched my mother do that. I watched my aunts, my grandmother. So it's like what we're doing, and women such as us, we're like breaking these
that pathology, that family. Yeah, we're breaking that pathology. And it's interesting that you brought that up. So last year I returned to school. So I'm working on my second master's in clinical mental health counseling. So right when COVID hit, in 2000, that was the time where I really, it really kind of shook me to say, time doesn't really wait for anybody. And it was something that I kind of wanted to pursue for a while. And so I just said, you know what, let me do it. But to your point, it's learned behavior. Like you said, we've watched our mothers, we've watched our grandmothers, hold these things in, and we almost like numb ourselves. It's like we're not feeling, we're not processing our emotions. And then it shows up in, diseases, the autoimmune disorders, and it's killing us. Black women, us not feeling, not processing, us living up to this myth. And this is my area of research too. And I do agree with you that we don't know how to process, because we know what we've been taught. We've known what we've seen our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, what our church community, that's all that we know. And we go through life just doing these things unknowingly until a major event. So for some people, it could be, maybe they've had a heart attack, something traumatic. And it's the question that I always ask, why is it sometimes that it takes something so traumatic to get our attention? Because our body is screaming to us. Our body is giving us these signals, but we don't know that we don't know what we don't know.
Right. Yep, something traumatic. Like you said, it could be the loss of, the loss of someone. There's a number of losses. It could be, friends, family members. It could be the loss of a career. It could be the loss of a marriage. A number of different things. The loss of your hair. And we don't know what that's like. And I know I'm kind of going off on something else here, but it seems like I'm noticing, and I don't know, maybe people are just coming forward about it, but what's it called? When you
alopecia?
Right. I'm noticing, that's probably maybe stress related, or
it is.
I'm noticing a lot of women are coming forward with that now. Yeah. So when you mentioned about, holding all of this in, and I know you mentioned autoimmune, depression, anxiety, fibroids, fibromyalgia, and I'm not a holistic teacher or by any nature. However, I do believe that a lot of these conditions have a huge impact on us.
Correct, because it's a part of wellness. So, we know that there's mental health, but then there's also wellness, and that's in all the areas kind of your life. And we know that there's like the mind gut connection. So a lot of, and I know that's like a new thing, like a lot of physicians are now making that connection, and now they're bringing that to their, they're doing the education with their clients. So I'm sure you as a clinician, you're probably asking about, people's sleep patterns, their diet. So people are now starting to, more attention is being brought to this, but I don't think a lot of people realize how everyday environmental stress can cause not only physical diseases, but also, mental diseases too. It's all connected.
Yep, it's all connected. Wow. So these talks are always so good because there's so many different important, factors that come up, and a lot, everything is not all compartmentalized.
Correct.
A lot of times everything is interconnected. Because we're talking about the book Undefeated, and I know her vision is that she wants to inspire women.
Yes.
She's a big advocate for, meaning Kearn Cherry.
Yes.
She's a big advocate for like women's empowerment and women being inspired and basically living their best life.
Yes.
Walking in their purpose. So I'm sure that a lot of the individuals that join the project, want to be able to inspire others by sharing their story.
Definitely. So the, co-authors that I have met, they're all amazing women with very powerful testimonies based on the things that they have overcome. And these women are, man, they're my sheroes. They're brave. And I hope that women will be inspired. If I had to take a guess, I would say that there's probably 100% chance that women will be inspired. These women are, my other co-authors are very brave women that, and I always say, when life brings you lemons, you have two choices. Either you're going to, I know the saying is when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. But I just feel like you have two choices in life. You're either going to sink or you're going to swim when things happen. And all the co-authors, we've chosen to swim. So.
Absolutely. Wow, that's awesome. So let me ask you this. Tell me, I know you mentioned it earlier, and I just want to make sure I'm getting it straight. Now, this is not your first anthology, right?
No, correct. This is my third anthology.
Okay, your third. So what do you think are some of the positives about joining in anthology? And would you recommend that to someone? And do you plan on, doing it again and or authoring your own book or book?
Yeah, so I think one of the positives about joining an anthology is one, the community. So you're joining a community of like-minded women. I think two, just having access to Kearn, because she in herself, in her life, she's inspiration in herself, but just kind of having the access to her, and she's so motivating. And besides that, I think just getting, your story, because we all are of like mind, because we want to inspire and empower other women. So just walking in your purpose. Yes, I hope to do another anthology with Kearn. So with this book, we're also going to do a workbook. And then we'll have a workshop series. So I'll be partnering with her and other co-authors on that. But then I hope to speak next year in the Power Up Summit. So I hope to take the stage, move out of my comfort zone and hope to do that. Yes, I do plan to answer your other question, to kind of author my first book. So as a solo author, I hope to release that next year. And with that book, I want to talk a little bit more about just the duality of kind of grieving a child. So like losing a child and kind of grieving. There's two dates. So the date that your child was supposed to be born, and then you grieve the date that they were actually, when they came into the world, and then you have that date of, when they left, but just kind of how to move on through that grief process, even though I kind of touched on it in my chapter, but I only had, a limited amount of pages, but I just want to tell a little bit more about, my process and being, in therapy for about 2.5 years.
Okay. Wow, that sounds awesome. Like you said, because you'll be sharing your story and you'll also be actually teaching women how you move through it. In the different stages and so forth.
And I'm a huge advocate for therapy and mental health as well.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, eventually I will, write my own book. I don't know. I have to think about what I actually would want to talk about. I don't know if it would all be about confidence and self-confidence. I don't know. I have to think about it a little bit more.
Well, that's a great start. Confidence.
Yeah, because everything starts there, right?
Yes.
Everything starts
Definitely.
there. But I know you mentioned about going outside of your comfort zone, and writing is outside of my comfort zone.
Oh.
Now, of course, I got a master's degree, so I had to write the thesis.
Yes.
And, 1,000,001 papers, and it's like, by the time I graduated, I was like, I don't want to put a pen to no more paper. I don't want to read another book in my life.
Yes.
I was just so done.
Yes.
But in terms of the writing, I've never considered myself a writer. So this is completely outside of my comfort zone, doing, an anthology project. Because initially, I was like, I'll never be a part of an anthology project. And do what? And write
Look
what?
at you.
So this is I'm with you with that. I mean, this is totally outside of my comfort zone as well. Writing and even, putting together a collaboration project. Totally outside of my comfort zone. And I've learned so much.
But you've done it, and you've done it successfully.
Well, I'm doing in process. We're set to launch the end of the month too.
But you're doing it. But you're doing it though. But think of it like this. So you have a certain path that you follow. So you chose to be a clinician or a social worker. So you have years of experience and wisdom. And it's just a matter of you, just like you wrote those papers in grad school, choosing your topic, which you kind of say, well, maybe just start with success and confidence, and then going from there. Or let me ask you this. What would you tell a client that said the same thing to you? I've done this thing for X amount of years. I have all of this knowledge and expertise. Writing is outside of my comfort zone. What would you tell your client?
I would say No, it's not. Well, no, I'm sorry, I take that back. No, I wouldn't say that it's not. Well, yes, because you have written before. I've written before.
Yes.
You know, it might not have been me volunteer. Well, in a way, I did volunteer because I knew that that's what it would take, right, in order to get my degree. So I made the conscious decision.
Yes.
Jump in there and do it. So yes, I have written before.
Yes.
It's just different. You know, it's still writing, but it's writing under a different setting.
Yes.
So I would tell them to actually look at some of the things that they've done in the past, and you're basically transferring it to like a new setting, because I'm really big too on transferable skills. You know, because like when we as women go into having our own businesses, we're using all of our skills that we use in our regular 9 to 5.
Yep.
Or that continue, whether you're doing both, communication skills, planning, project management, executing, writing, things of that nature. Now, no, I mean, there are a lot of things that we do have to learn. Like I'm not, I've never dealt with budgets before. I mean, God forbid I did statistics, but that was like, I had to kick and scream through that class. I got through it, but it wasn't my forte. So yes, there's areas that we have to learn, like marketing and all of that good stuff that's vital. But things that I'm not necessarily experienced in, but I'm learning. So it's a lot that I've transferred over, and a lot that I'm also learning. So that's kind of what I typically talk to people about. Like, look at some of your transferable skills, and okay, well, you said you never done that before, but what about this? And what about that? Or just like I did just now.
Yes.
I said, no, let's say, wait a minute. Yes, I have written before.
Yes.
So sometimes it's just kind of like walking people through that. And then for the pieces that they haven't done, that to move into it, and challenge yourself. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to mess up, and that's okay.
Right.
That's part of the process. You're going to learn and grow even more when you go outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And that self-talk is very important. Like you said, just talking through it, identifying some of that irrational or negative thinking, kind of reframing it, and then going from there. So you better encourage yourself.
Right. That's right. Listen, it's good for other people to encourage you, but we have to be our number one cheerleaders first, right?
Yes.
And I just remembered, I'm just gonna say this. You really kind of sparked a lot in me today. Like my mom passed in 2006, and it really left a void in me. And my mom was like my number one cheerleader. My number one cheerleader. And what I've had to learn is to be my own cheerleader.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like how you mentioned earlier, it came out of, losing her.
Yeah.
But out of that, I began to value myself more.
Yes.
I began to, so to speak, toot my own horn and not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
So I've learned and grew, out of that particular situation, losing her.
Yes.
The way that we did in 2006.
Yeah. And I could totally definitely relate to that. But one thing I want you to kind of hold on to is that your mom's not here physically, but she still lives on in you. Like your mom's DNA is in you. So you probably have, and you do, I shouldn't say probably, you probably have some of her mannerisms, the way that you think. So she's living on through you. So you still have to carry on your mom's legacy, but I know it's hard when that person isn't physically here. Like that. Let's talk about that. And one thing, when people always say time heals all wounds, I disagree. I don't agree with that. I think when you lose someone very close to you, time, it doesn't heal it. I just think if you learn to grieve in a healthy way, it just teaches you how to live your life without that person. Because there's always that piece of you, like you said, that void in you that stays with you like every day. It's just, you don't forget it. It's a part of your everyday life. So I feel like time just kind of teaches you how to kind of get through the day,
Mhm.
weeks, and month, and just how to
Mhm.
live with that
Right.
void.
Living with it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Adjusting to a new reality.
Yes. Yes.
New reality. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Someone else said that, and I don't know who it was, but I totally agree with that. You know, it's not just the passing of time, you know,
Yes.
but you still have to do the work, and you still have
Correct.
to, you know, reacclimate yourself. And that, and again, just like with maybe the loss of a job or the loss of a marriage.
Yes.
Let's just say
Yes.
you were married to somebody for 40 years.
Yes.
And then they pass on, or you get a divorce.
Right.
It's a divorce after 40 years, but I mean,
It happens.
it happens.
No, it happens because people, I think we touched on it earlier. Sometimes people lose themselves. And sometimes during that long marriage, it may not have been a healthy marriage. And, you know, some people just get to a point where they want better in their lives. I mean, unfortunately, it happens.
Yeah. I know my parents divorced after 21 years.
Oh, wow.
And it was weird. And then we're going to go ahead and close out, but it was so weird. My parents they didn't have the best marriage. They divorced, and they were like enemies for a few
Oh,
years,
wow.
right? Then they began to be best friends, even to the point
Oh.
where my father bought my mom the house right next door to him. The craziest thing. And what they would do is she would go out and buy the food for dinner, and he would cook it. Then they'd have dinner together. And then when they would get on each other's nerves, you know, she just, I'm leaving. And she'd
go to her house,
slam the door, and go to her house next door. And they wouldn't talk for a couple of days, and then they'd be back to talking like nothing had even happened. But they were like, you know, it's crazy. They were like the best of friends, you know, after they, you know, got through the divorce and, you know, kind of healed, I guess, if you will. Yeah, so that was a little that's always
but maybe they needed that. And you know this as a clinician, it's often that what is it, that culminating event or that thing that drives people to counseling? Like, what is that upset or disruption? It's just normally it's something, you know, it could be traumatic or not. It's what was that thing that, and maybe your parents needed that. They needed the divorce. And you know, that's a process in order to, you know, come back together.
Yep. And you know, it worked. They were great.
Oh,
isn't that something?
Yes.
So thank you for joining the show and for talking openly and honestly about, you know, your chapter, letting us know a little bit about you. So in maybe about a minute, can you let the audience know where they can find you, if you have any upcoming projects?
Yes, thank you. So on Instagram, you can find me at Shaunda Thompson _official. You can also follow me on my online boutique. These are some of my earrings. So Shop Esteem Boutique on Instagram. Again, it's Shop Esteem Boutique. Besides the Undefeated chapter, I have, again, I'm working with the workbook and the course with Kearn, but I also have in 2023, I'll be releasing my affirmation coloring book. And then I will also have my first online course for women. So kind of helping women, kind of doing some spring cleaning in their life. So I'm going to launch it in the spring. Where we will kind of go through like what areas in your life you want to work on, and then giving resources and tools on how to kind of, how do I want to say this, to kind of reset your life and just how to do things differently, like how to think. So it has a very heavy emphasis on your mindset. And it really correlates with my chapter. So my chapter is called Reset, Recharge, Realign. So I'm just kind of taking that same theme. And then under each of those buckets, so reset, recharge, and realign, just giving women tools and resources to kind of just have a new life.
Nice. Awesome. So let me go ahead and close it out. Thank you again for being a guest on the show. It has been absolutely wonderful. I've enjoyed chatting with you.
Me too. Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome. So everyone, Jacqueline Kabah Harrison here. Please join me every second and fourth Sunday of the month. Also, too, like I said, go ahead and follow me on my Facebook business page, which is Realizing Your Potential, the numbers 123, because I'm adding a lot of additional 8 Queen Roundtable show and podcast episodes, all with different emphasis and so forth. But make sure that you're following me so you can stay up to date with everything. Also, make sure that you follow me on, LinkedIn. I'm under my name, Jacqueline Kabah Harrison, as well as I'm on Instagram under Realizing Your Potential, the numbers 123. I am also your host for 8 Queens Roundtable Leadership Symposium, which takes place in January, May, and September. This year, we're actually going to be combining the symposium, leadership symposium, with the virtual book launch for my new anthology, Born to Lead, Awakening the Leader Within. That will launch towards the end of the month, and I'm super excited about that. Again, make sure that you're following me so you can get the alert and be able to join us for the virtual launch. And lastly, but not least, I am the executive producer of the 8 Queens Roundtable channel on the Women Win Network, which is dedicated to women winning 365 days. So if you are interested in being a TV show host, then definitely look me up. Follow me, show up in my inbox, shoot me an email, but let's go ahead and arrange a time to meet. So thank you all again. For those of you that have taken the time to join us live, as well as those that will catch the replay, thank you so much. And I'll talk to everyone again soon. All right, take care, everyone.